Have you ever thought that maybe, just maybe, everything you're trying to add to your faith is actually taking something away from it? Well, today we're diving into the ancient letter to the Colossians. It's short, but man, is it powerful. And it tackles this exact problem head-on with a massive message about Jesus Christ.
And really, that's the question that got this letter written in the first place. You had this young church dealing with a problem that, let's be honest, feels super relevant even today. They had this simple, straightforward faith in Jesus, and suddenly it was under attack from all these other complicated ideas.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in this small city called Colossae, which is in modern-day Turkey. And there's this new church, right? It was started by a guy named Epaphras, one of Paul's partners in ministry. And they were in the middle of a major spiritual identity crisis.
So picture this. It's around AD 60, and the Apostle Paul is under house arrest in Rome. He gets a visit from Epaphras, and the news, well, it's not great. He hears that the believers back in Colossae are getting pulled in all these different directions by a really confusing and, frankly, dangerous mix of ideas. Ideas that were threatening the very foundation of everything they believed.
And the thing is, it wasn't just one single bad idea. It was this tangled mess of philosophies. You had some Jewish legalism, a focus on rules and regulations, mixed with some Greek philosophy. Then they threw in a bit of mysticism and this idea of needing secret knowledge, even worshiping angels. And to top it all off, a really heavy emphasis on harsh self-denial. It was like this weird spiritual cocktail, promising some kind of secret, higher path that went way beyond just simple faith in Jesus.
Now, Paul's reaction to this is intense. He doesn't just see these ideas as, harmless little add-ons. No way. He calls them out as a trap. He says this stuff can literally take you captive with empty deceit. He knew deep down that these other philosophies weren't adding to Jesus, they were taking away from him. They were making him seem small.
So how do you fight back against the philosophy that's shrinking Jesus? Well, Paul's strategy is brilliant. He doesn't get bogged down in a point-by-point argument. Instead, he just paints this absolutely breathtaking portrait of who Christ is. He just unleashes this powerful declaration of Jesus' absolute supremacy and his complete and total sufficiency. He kicks things off with this incredible section that scholars often call the Christ hymn. And the first thing he says is that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. I mean, think about that. If you want to know what the invisible God is really like, you look at Jesus. He's the perfect, physical, right here in front of you representation of the God you can't see. Okay, next up, Paul calls him the firstborn over all creation. Now, hold on, because this one can be tricky. It does not mean he was the first thing created. Not at all. In that culture, the term firstborn meant supreme rank, total honor, the one with all the authority. So Paul is saying Jesus is the boss, the one with ultimate authority over everything that exists.
And that authority? Oh, it goes even deeper. Paul makes this crystal clear. Jesus isn't just a part of creation, he is the one who did the creating. He's the agent of it all. Everything, things you can see, things you can't, from the biggest galaxies down to the smallest angels, all of it was created through him and, get this, for him.
Then Paul calls him the head of the church. This means Jesus is the source of its life, its leader, its direction. The church isn't supposed to be just some building or an organization, right? It's a living, breathing body, and it gets its actual life, its very pulse, from Christ.
And all of this, all these incredible titles, they all lead to the cross. It's the pinnacle. Through his death, Christ made things right between us and God. He built a bridge across that huge gap that separated humanity from its creator. Honestly, this one act of sacrifice is the foundation for everything else Paul is talking about. So let's just step back for a second. Paul has laid out this incredible case for Christ's supremacy. And now he lands the knockout punch, his sufficiency. Because Jesus is the image of God, the firstborn, the creator, the head, and the reconciler, he is enough. That's it. He's completely and totally adequate. You don't need to add anything else to the mix. The equation is solved.
But look, this really deep theology wasn't just some abstract idea for them to think about. It wasn't just an intellectual exercise. No, it was meant to radically change their day-to-day lives. Truly understanding who Jesus is was supposed to completely shift them away from a religion of just following rules to a life, a reality that was centered completely on him.
And the difference between these two ways of life, man, it could not be more night and day. On one hand, you had the false teachers, totally focused on the old self, a life of external stuff, checking boxes, following food laws, celebrating certain festivals, denying yourself things. But Paul points to something totally different,
a new self, one that's rooted in Christ. And this produces a real, deep internal change. It's not about what you do on the outside to look spiritual. It's about who you're actually becoming on the inside. Compassionate, kind, humble, forgiving, and above all, loving.
So what's the engine that drives this kind of change? Paul calls it the great mystery that's finally been revealed. And here it is. A transformed life isn't about trying harder to follow a list of rules. It's about Christ himself literally living in you. He becomes your source of life, your motivation, your hope for whatever comes next.
So we're bringing it all back to today. The challenge in this ancient letter, it absolutely echoes through the centuries and speaks right into our world. I mean, we are bombarded with competing philosophies, all promising to add that one missing thing to our lives, right?
And if you had to boil Paul's entire argument down to just one line, this would be it. It's his final, most powerful declaration. In the new reality that Jesus brings about, he's everything. He's not just another item on some spiritual checklist. He is the beginning, the middle, and the end. He's the whole thing.
And so, the letter leaves us right where it left the believers in Colossae, with a question. In our own lives, with all our goals, our worries, our endless distractions, is Christ truly enough? Is he really all we need? It's a huge question, and it's definitely one we're thinking about.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us.